grab them when they come up. All-Star game tonight, so the Guardians not back on the field until Friday. They'll be in Chicago to play the White Sox. That's an 8:10 start, looking ahead to Friday night here on MMS. They sent one of their pitchers to New York. Alex Young. This is not a guy who saw a lot of action here in Cleveland, but they dealt him to the Giants, San Francisco Giants. So who knows? All these moves being made. You know, you got to think, if you're not an all-star, you go, boy, it'd be great to be an all-star. But there are so many players and so many teams that in the grand scheme of things, you're not going to be a standout. Law of averages says you're not going to be a standout. Want to be. But you go, well, what am I going to do, right? Yeah. Most of us, law of averages, most of us, not standouts. Got a movie for your boyfriend, by the way, just as I'm thinking of it.
Uh-oh.
Super bloody, super gory.
Gross.
Not a great movie, but great,
right
great. Yep, Song of Solomon. He's going to find it on Amazon Prime. It's a couple years old. I don't remember if it's subtitled or not. Usually the best ones are subtitled, but tell him to watch Song of Solomon. It's an exorcism movie. Ooh. But it's got a lot of great gore in it. Yeah. Guy cuts his own throat to pull his tongue out the bottom, and another dude pulls his eyes out.
Spoiler alert.
It's dynamite. I'm not giving anything away.
It sounds like you just gave a lot away.
But you'll be waiting for those scenes. You won't.
I won't.
The royal you.
Stuff.
Yeah. You don't like that stuff?
No, I hate that stuff.
Oh, come on. What are you, a Nancy boy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Little Nancy Squire over
Nancy
here.
I just don't like it.
I don't like it either.
And I also my girlfriend listens to a lot of murder podcasts, and she's telling me this one story, and I'm like, how is this entertaining? It was one about, they're called the Girl Scout murders, and it's just so upsetting to hear about this guy that was raping and murdering Girl Scouts. And I'm like, this is how you relax? And she's like,
See, depending on the content, that I can't do.
I can't do that.
But I was listening to a podcast that did, Dan Cummins' Time Suck podcast does deep dives on things like that sometimes. And he did one on this chick in the late 80s, early 90s from Australia who skinned and cooked her ex-husband. Mm-hmm. Like, she took his, like, she worked in a butcher shop.
I can handle that more than the kid stuff. The kid stuff is what kills me.
No,
like,
I can't do kid stuff. But, like, something like that where she worked in a butcher shop her whole life, so she was, like, really skilled with a knife. And thinking about how calmly she probably skinned a human being, that kind of stuff is, like, interesting to me to be like, man, I feel like everyone's just a couple steps away from losing their mind, you know? Like, it's insane.
Well, there are different ways to lose your mind, too. Yeah. Not everybody loses their mind, obviously kills somebody, but yeah, but the calm and ease with which some of these people
just do it, just skin them.
I got to tell you, I always think that those are at least a little bit chemically induced. You know how they found out that, you know, back in the day, they're like, boy, these kamikaze pilots sure were loyal to Japan. No, they were tweaked out. They were giving them meth. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They were putting them out of their brains. Why else would you, as a rational person, and nobody's that patriotic, where they're going to fly their plane into an aircraft carrier, you know?
This chick had, like, anger issues and a real messed up childhood and, you know, everything in her past, rape, abuse, everything like that. And then she killed him, skinned him, hung his skin up like a doorway, like a curtain, to get into the kitchen, where she cooked his butt and his head and put it out.
That's where the good marbling is.
Right.
That's where all the marbling is in the ass.
Ratio. She put it out with, like, vegetables and potatoes on plates that she labeled for his kids. So she put, like,
a woman scorn.
Yeah, she put, like, name placards. Like, Nora, sit here and eat your dad's butt.
She may be a cannibal, but she's not a savage.
Right.
She's civilized.
It's crazy. It's so nuts to hear about people like that.
What do you mean you ate your dad's ass? No. Let me explain. It was a whole thing. It was laid
barbecue
out.
Sauce.
It was braised.
There were two different sizes of fork.
He had her marinating in Italian dressing in the fridge.
In Italian dressing.
An Italian dressing.
Mary brings up cannibals a lot.
Because it's very interesting.
Again, I think that people, and my wife watches, does your girlfriend know that there's a Hulu show about that, by the way, Bill?
Cannibalism?
No. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders? Or is she just listening to the podcast?
She was listening to a podcast, and I think she listened to This Is Why We Drink, and that's what it was on.
There's a show on Hulu. It's, as we've clicked through, I've seen this, called Keeper of the Ashes. And it's about the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. And it's, you know who Kristen Chenoweth is?
Yeah.
She has a really high voice. She's primarily known as a Broadway actress. I don't know if she was in the original run of Wicked or something like that. This happened in her hometown. So the documentary is Kristen Chenoweth going back to investigate. Noted investigator Kristen Chenoweth goes back to like, hey, we got a Hollywood connection to this dumb case. I think people are just fascinated by other people's descents into depravity.
I agree.
You know? I mean, I think you can get, it's like eating too much cake, though. First couple of bites, you go, God, this is good. And then you get halfway through it, and you're like, it's okay, it's still good. But then by the time you finish it, you go, too much. That's what murder podcasts are to me. It's like the first couple of ones. Like, I'll watch some with my
get
wife.
A good story, though. I don't like just run-of-the-mill, some dude murdered his neighbor.
But you never know what it is. That's why I think it behooves people, before you dig into something like this, it will have a Wikipedia entry.
Yeah.
Scan through that. Because it doesn't matter if there's spoilers, because none of these documentaries really have huge reveals.
Right.
It's just a workman-like account. It's somebody with a camera and a really tiny budget, because these don't cost anything to produce. It's just a very kind of workman-like process. And they squeeze 8 episodes out of it, and then they vomit it onto a streamer.
Since I was a little kid, I think I saw Hannibal way too young. Silence of the Lambs, whatever. I saw that way too young, and I wanted to be Clarice. I wanted to go in and interview psychos. I wanted to interview people, work for the FBI, and like get inside the mind of serial killers. That was
Rubs the lotion on its skin, or else it gets the hose again.
Mister, if you let me go, I won't press charges, I promise.
Now it places the lotion in the basket. Put the lotion in the basket!
I was like 9, where I was
That's
like,
Parmesan Ted Levine right there.
9-year-old Mara was running around being like, I want to interview serial killers for a living. And I'm like, oh, man.
Mary Lynn, this is too intense of a movie for you to watch. Mom, it won Best Picture.
Come on.
Does that mean nothing to you?
Oh, that stuff fascinates me. It's the
I think the profiling part of it is really cool. Netflix had a great show that I think they got 2 seasons out of called Mindhunter, about these real-life guys in the FBI who kind of started the whole profiling program in the 70s. And so they were having actors play these actual serial killers in this show. I think COVID derailed the whole thing, so they were going to do a 3rd season and just didn't. But it's a wild show
I
over
only
on
know
Netflix.
about that show because they have a gay actor that I like.
Jonathan Groff.
In it.
That's why, but it's worth watching. He's good in it, and you know.
I watched it on my way back from Myrtle Beach one year, or no, Charleston. I watched it back.
Because Jonathan Groff is a hot guy, right?
He's like chubby dad hot. Like he's not. He doesn't have
Chubby dad hot.
No. He doesn't have the ideal gay body, but he is still attractive, and he's one of those like approachable gays. A gay that I would be like, oh, let me just buy a drink.
You can shoot your shot with him, yeah.
Well, the female lead I thought was pretty hot. This actress named Anna Torv, who was on the show Fringe, for people who watched Fringe on Fox. She was in that. She's the female lead in Mindhunters. And
I watched the 1st season. I never got around to the 2nd season.
Of Fringe?
Of Mindhunter.
Oh, Mindhunters. Yeah.
doesn't people losing their minds and like becoming killers doesn't interest you guys?
I mean,
just how I feel like it could happen to anybody. There's
we are all surrounded by so much insanity that we are like, we've basically capitulated to nuts in the world. We're like, can't do anything about it, I guess, except just, arm ourselves, whatever. That I think when you see it in kind of I think part of the appeal to these is that people think they're going to figure out a way to recognize it in their own lives, right?
Yeah.
Hey, if I was ever in that situation,
this is what I would do.
Because what's part of the appeal of these murder content, right? The documentary murder industrial complex, whether it's podcasts or documentaries, what's part of the appeal is watching it and going, oh, well, I could have figured that out. Mm-hmm. So I think people enjoy these because they go, well, if that ever happened in my life, boy, I'd figure it out.
I think
I know because I saw that thing.
It's more studying the murderer and making sure I don't become crazy like that.
But there's
Well, I
also
think that's why a lot of.
but there's no
Okay.
but there's no rhyme, reason, or rationale in why someone
Okay.
would murder a person and feed their body to their children.
But there is a pattern of behaviors between people who do things like this. So it's like recognizing those patterns, and it's like, if I ever start killing squirrels and playing with their guts, some things are going to happen.
What I'm saying is but those are things we all know. Those are like well-established patterns.
Yeah.
They killed animals as a kid. They did this.
Yeah.
They had a dead look in their eyes or whatever. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I've watched enough of it that I've had my fill, and I just don't like it. And then I also put myself too much in the victim's family role, where I don't like them glorifying these killers.
See,
Like,
I'm
it just
the
grosses
exact
me out.
opposite. When I watch or listen to those types of things, I don't think about the family. I think about the person. I think about the killer, the murderer.
that's what they
and
want you to
it-
think
What it
about.
would be like to be them. I'm like, let me put myself in this person's situation and see if I can make sense of why you would snap and kill this person.
Yeah, because these are real families that they hear about this stuff, and people talk about it so cavalierly that they're just like, it's entertainment to them, and there's people that are actually suffering through these situations, and it's just not fun for me because I just think about them too much.
Well, it hits too close to home for me. That's why I don't watch it. Like, not the murder documentaries. I'll switch to, like, Surviving R. Kelly or something else. But
Something
murder
much
documentaries,
easier.
No.
Something that doesn't hit home for Poundcake. R. Kelly peeing on teenagers. I've got to give you some money here. It's a chance to win $1,000. So listen close. You can go fuel yourself right now. Good luck.
The Buzzard wants you to go fuel yourself and score $1,000. Enter the nationwide keyword BILLS at WMMS.com. That's BILLS. Enter it now at WMMS.com. And good luck from Buzzard Radio.
Alan, the theory that there's an American fixation on murder documentaries and podcasts is that we don't experience death regularly. Our elders don't live with us. They don't die in our homes. We don't butcher our own meat, etc. I mean, there are a lot of people who... I take your point. I mean, there are plenty of people in this country who do those things.
Do.
You son of a bitch. Who do. I saw a Mennonite family when I was coming back from Michigan over the weekend. I stopped off at the rest stop, and a Mennonite family gets out of their minivan. Mm-hmm. And it's the guy with the hat and the sideburns and the mom with the basket cap or whatever. And then 3 clearly disabled children, right? Somewhere on the spectrum of physical and mental disabilities. And I'm like, is that worth it? Is the inbreeding worth it that much? I know part of it they can't help, but I'm like, is that really, that's the point of this?
Here, when we're talking about morbid curiosities and not unhealthy obsession, but there's, inbreeding gets me too. Where
but it usually, but you don't end up so much with
Inbreeding and cannibalism,
dude. Because it's so hard for me to grasp. But it's some things that people that's all they've done and it's all they know. There's this like viral TikTok story. It's a few things long about this family from West Virginia called the Whitakers, where it's supposedly the most inbred family in America.
Yeah.
And it's like just generations and generations and generations, to the point where the people that they're interviewing all live in the same house. They're all siblings. I mean, their eyes are all going different ways. They look like disabled and mentally disabled. The one guy can't even talk. He just barks.
And by the way, those communities end up with disorders that aren't seen outside those communities.
Right,
so
like
they're
it's just them.
Yeah, they're creating like their own disorders that get passed around in these,
like verbal communication.
they're usually some kind of dwarfism disorder,
Verbal communication is a big problem with this family. So I think they interview like 4 or 5
like Jodie
members.
Foster and Nell?
Yes, kind of like that.
I'm a in the wind.
My time, why?
But like the one dude, he can't speak, so he barks. That's it. He just har, har, har. Like that's how he speaks, but he can understand. Like you can see that when you're talking, it registers to him, but he can't speak. And then they're like, there's another dude, another brother who has difficulty putting sentences and things like that together. But they also said that none of them ever went to school. That they all just like were inbred and lived in a house, and that's it. That's like their whole
Imagine if
life.
that's what you were known for. Like you're known for being the inbred family. Like, oh hi, I'm John Whitaker. My family's famous for porking each other.
But it's not so much that. I mean, all those you don't have to. It doesn't have to be a member of your immediate family, but all those communities are like that. I mean, because like Mary said, you have generations of people living in the same area, so that population is getting bigger. But new families aren't moving in.
Yeah.
So it's inevitable that there's going to be, hey, who do we have that kind of isn't related to us, but they might be?
Dude,
you're going to run out of
wild.
people, boy.
It's just wild to me that, like, and I guess maybe once it gets to a certain point, you can't really go find a mate. Like, if you can't speak properly, like, who are you going to go and have a date with if you're barking?
But it's also not a system. I'm surprised that those communities last as long as they do.
Dude,
it shows you the resilience of the human body and mind.
These people aren't dying at 40.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, they live long time. Yeah.
So there's got to be something in there, right? Inbreeding lets you live till you're 90. You just, act like a dog.
Just a little bit.
All the energy they didn't expend in speaking to people, they stored up.
It's crazy, though. If you get a chance, check it out. I think it's part of that. There's a series that I've seen on Facebook called Soft White Underbelly, where he interviews
it's on YouTube, too.
He interviews, like, crack addicts and hookers and all kinds of stuff.
And it's very sincere, too. It's not like he's going in there being a jerk or anything.
He's just like, hey, give me your story. And I think this Whitaker family was one of the earlier things that he did and kind of broke him into this, like, documentary interview type of thing. Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
It's not Amish, but there's a great, I think Johnny Knoxville produced it. It's called The Wild and Wonderful Whites of West Virginia. Have you ever watched that?
Yes.
That was a good one.
The White Family in West Virginia. Oh, it's an aptly titled documentary, but it's fun. It's just this super, super Hillrod family in West Virginia.
You just watch it and you're like, man, dude, that's your life. That's, I guess, what trips me up is that I'm like, every day, this is just what you do. This is it.
Well, it goes to show that people really can exist in this bubble where their reality is so different than what we experience on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people are happier than others.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like they're fine with it.
And they ain't got no teeth, but they're smiling.
They got no problems. They don't really care about politics. Like there's no
This is what it is.
Nothing wrong, really.
It is. I think it's that Mountain Dew that's running through their veins, boy.
Keeps them going.
It keeps them going. Dude. They sweat, and it's that neon green perspiration.
Well, and then they show like the houses that these people live in, and like growing up in a hoarder house, I look at it and I'm like, you just don't even care. It's just filthy. It's just, this is just how you live. There's no need or want to look presentable, or because you're not going anywhere. You interact with the same 10 people. They know what your house looks like, so it doesn't matter. You know, it's wild.
Would you feel free if they were like, oh, we're a hoarder household. Oh, so you don't feel so bad? Because that's why I watch 600-Pound Life. I'm like, I may be on the bigger side, but I'm not that big.
Hoarding is different because it's a mental disorder. It's a mental illness that's often tied to OCD and like childhood trauma and things like that. But that's different than just, I guess, not knowing any different, not knowing a different type of life.
You said as a kid that you were kind of embarrassed to bring people home.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was a messy house, and they didn't. You can tell people, my mom's a hoarder all you want to, but they're not gonna like disassociate that with like, oh, you have a messy house.
Well, I also in the 90s that there wasn't that term for it. Hoarding wasn't like a well-known thing. That show wasn't around. It wasn't anything like that.
What was it called in the 90s? Pack rat.
Yeah, being a pack rat. I have a joke about that. Where they like that's a cute way to have a mental disorder that they just like, oh, she's just a pack rat.
She's named after a rat.
Right.
It's super cute.
So cute. And like they don't say that my depression is, I just have the sleepy shakes. That's
yeah,
all I have,
sleepy shakes. Huh. But yeah, well.
Look into it if you've got some free time and you want to be fascinated by...
I mean, I do love to be fascinated. That is true.
Mm-hmm. Does inbreeding fascinate you?
No.
Then never mind.
Right. Alan, they were probably Amish and not Mennonite. Well, I assume the fact that they were getting out of an automobile means they were Mennonite. There aren't a lot of Amish people getting out of a minivan on the highways, is my point at the rest stop, right?
Right.
Amish they can't use motor
Mennonites
vehicles.
have electricity.
There you go.
Were they dancing? Because they could have been men at work.
Well, I offered them a Vegemite sandwich, and they took it immediately from me, and I thought, there's something going on here. And, all right, I've got a break. If you want to text for something, 35192. You can always drop us messages if you're listening anywhere you are on the iHeartRadio app.
The Alan Cox Show on 100.7
WMMS. We got stuff. You want stuff. Win stuff. This week at WMMS.com. Register to win tickets to Cedar Point.